Hello and welcome to this here video. It is unlike my others, or most of my others, in that it is unscripted and improvised. Impromptu. And I'm doing this mostly because it's not, typical. This is a video detailing or talking about the fact that my channel is now a year old. Isn't that, just wild how the Earth orbits around the sun and, we humans are, this is important and cool. Surely this is worthy of celebration and, observation. So I'm going to do the things humans do and observe the moving around of celestial objects. And in this context, I think that means doing a 1-year review of the content I have previously produced to determine what was good about it, what was not great about it, what can be improved to make better content in the next revolution around the sun. So yeah, I guess you can join me. I think, being transparent about the goings on with YouTube creation is, useful for anyone who maybe wants to make their own content one day. They would end up having inevitably some of the same considerations that I would be having now, and it would be interesting to receive feedback, mostly from the audience, but from also content creators as well, to hear what solutions they had to similar problems. So yeah, if you would like to spend, I don't know how long this is going to be, maybe half an hour, hearing me be mean to myself. Okay, I'm not going to be that mean to myself. But yeah, sit back and listen to this. Hear ye, hear ye. I'm going to talk about AndarNation propaganda. Except it's not called AndarNation propaganda anymore. It's called Red Letter Daze because I wanted to do a rebranding. I want to maybe go over why I thought a rebranding was necessary. The term AndarNation propaganda just for me didn't necessarily evoke anything. I feel like the word propaganda was doing a lot of work, whereas the word AndarNation doesn't do anything. And in fact, nation seems to be antithetical to some of the work that I do. What is an AndarNation and what does it relate to leftist politics? And the answer is not at all. It's just a nonsense word. So I wanted to get rid of that, and I wanted something that more evoked what this channel is and what it could potentially be. Furthermore, the term Andar originated in my life as back in middle school as a nickname. There was a thing me and friends were doing where we were making caveman names by just taking the first syllable of our first name and then adding dar to the end. So for some reason mine stuck and I became Andar for a while, and this was useful as a username for a lot of internet things. Whenever I needed a username for a video game or something, I had something ready to just plug in. Andar, there you go. Similarly, when I started a gaming channel in high school, AndarNation was what I chose. And then later on, when I wanted to, make a channel about leftist politics, AndarNation propaganda. Yeah, the propaganda arm of the AndarNation. But this process was very thoughtless, very automatic, and so, I don't know, it just feels lame. Plus, the fact that Andar isn't, a made-up assortment of letters. It is an actual word in Spanish and is some people's actual name. So it feels a little strange having a caveman name that is people's actual real-world name. It seems to be a little offensive. I'm kind of telling on myself a little bit. No one knew the origins of Andar to me other than me, but yeah, over time it's just more uncomfortable to keep bringing that forward. I want to get away from that a bit. Plus, it sounds too masculine, and I'm not masculine. So I also want to distance myself from it in that regards. As far as gender expression goes, it doesn't vibe well with me any longer. So as for why I want to choose Red Letter Daze as the name going forward, I wanted something that more actually evoked the work I was doing. And, obviously, red is the color of communism, so that needed to be in there somehow. Whereas red, it's obviously playing off of the phrase red letter day, which red letter days were days of importance marked on the calendar in red, usually for religious reasons. I guess you can even look at old Bibles or some Bibles wherein some of the text is read to mark when Jesus is talking, to mark that those words are more important. Similarly, they did the same thing on calendars when there were more important days. And I think, a revolution would probably fit the criteria for a red letter day, a day of importance worthy of observation and celebration. And, as for Daze, D-A-Z-E, I like that it plays off of, saying red letter days, D-A-Y-S. So that's just fun for me. But more than that, I think it pays respects to the people on the ground experiencing a revolution. Revolution might, to people experiencing it, feel days-like. A lot of change happening very, very quickly. Obviously, a real revolution would not happen over the course of one day. It would happen over a period of time. But even so, such radical changes would be a shock to a lot of people, even to the revolutionaries themselves. The idea of actually seeing revolution in our lifetime is unbelievable to some degree. Like, you can't, I think I said in my Full Metal Alchemist video, you can't blame people for not being able to see a better future through an intolerable present. And given that, I think revolution would feel very Daze-like. And so there you go, we have 3 words strung together, red letter Daze. Yeah, a leftist channel making videos to educate and agitate towards revolutionary activity. So yeah, that's where we're at now. The previous year, the year of AndarNation propaganda, is now what we will take a look at, so that we can, analyze strengths and weaknesses and make a better new year with red letter Daze. To do that, I rewatched all of my old content, which is 20 videos with a 4.5 cumulative hour count. Which, that was a fun day. I was going into it really negative, thinking that I was going to experience a sort of cringe fest of myself, and to be honest, I came away more positive on my older videos than I thought I would be. It gave me more confidence that, I am actually kind of a little funny, somewhat relatable. I mean, obviously I would relate to myself, duh. But, I feel like I'm good at the video making thing and the talking thing. I got that stuff down. But even still, there are things I noticed that I think I could do better on, and trends in my videos that I don't necessarily like to see. So I'm going to start with these weaknesses first, and then I'll talk about the strengths later to end on a more positive note. But firstly, I think the thing I noticed in my videos is that they seem largely unfocused in terms of the scripts I've produced. I think I get caught up in some literary excesses when I'm writing, and furthermore, the writing process that I use is just sitting my ass down on my chair and writing, kind of stream of consciousness. So realistically, in a way, my written works are not that dissimilar from what I'm doing right now, which is speaking more off the cuff. it's just more written, and by doing my videos, reading off the script I wrote, they tend to sound smarter. I have less ums and ahs and awkward pauses as I'm thinking of the next thing to say. But ultimately, it still is just me saying my thoughts with very, very light editing. So I think the thing to get around that, to create more focused, tighter videos, is, just spend more time in the writing process, actually do drafts and revisions properly, spend time more gestating on, whether or not this sentence here needs to be said, or if it could be said in a more coherent way. Because I think, this has led to some of my works being kind of creative and political failures, particularly what I thought at the time was one of my best videos, Does History Repeat Itself? I look at as definitely kind of a failure, and mostly because it becomes too bogged down in faux philosophical ramblings to really have, the intended effect. It was supposed to talk about how deterministic philosophies can potentially lead to inaction, and that while determinism is, the thing I kind of believe to be true to some extent, like, you kind of can't use it as a functioning, actionable philosophy. You have to believe that you have to do things because things don't happen unless you do them. But, that point was obscured by a 20-minute video that wanted to talk about history and capitalist realism, and I think that stuff was kind of fluff compared to what I actually wanted to do. So yeah, I think I need to be more honest with what effect I'm trying to have, and more focused on creating that effect, having that message be spread. Whereas I think with the process I'm doing now, sometimes the messages can be lost or obscured. Another thing I noticed is that over time, I kind of sort of became a bit lazier with the video production process. What I need to do is remember that these are video essays, and that the video portion is just as important as the written portion, the essay portion. I think, especially my later videos, they are just kind of visually boring. It's just me talking to the camera, and I think I have good things to say. I think I have good words, and the good words have good messages behind them, but ultimately, there's not a lot going on screen to demand someone's attention. So I feel like my videos are a good listen. They're not necessarily a good watch. And I think my earlier videos were actually better at this. I was using more graphics and being a bit more creative, using more clips and stuff like that. But over time, I think I just got a little lazier. I wanted to just pump videos out. I wanted to be done with it because, video production is actually kind of stressful. Putting videos open to the public is where they'll be scrutinized is, a stressful thing to do to yourself. And on some level, my working philosophy started to become, I just want to pump this video out so that I can stop thinking about it. And that created a means for which I would start using shortcuts and not doing the best work I could potentially be doing. And so I think I need to recommit myself to making good videos in addition to just good scripts or good writings. Also, I should probably better learn audio stuff. That'll take some time, though, and the effects will not be apparent. Hopefully by the end of the year, I know how to make consistent quality audio. Ideally, I'd want a better mic, but, there's a lot you can do on the software side of things that I am not doing. So there's that, too. Another thing I want to be better about is making more purposeful videos. I want to make videos with an actual, reason for existence. And by that, I think I need to back up and talk about more of the origins of this channel, which were kind of based out of like selfishness. Like I always wanted to educate and agitate, that kind of thing. Make a better world, I guess you could say. But really, I wanted to start making videos to express that, mostly just for the sake of making videos. There was some self-improvement aspect. Like I think in my first video, I Want to Make Bread Tube too, I talked about, I was introducing myself, my intentions with the channel, and some of my inspirations. But like the intentions I had were more or less like more personal improvement ways. Like this channel and making videos would encourage me to get more active politically and encourage me to read more stuff. And that's actually largely been successful. Now that I'm back in the States, I have joined some mutual aid orgs, and I've definitely read more than I would have otherwise. Sometimes that goes into making a video, like with Voltairine de Cleyre and Henry David Thoreau. Other times, it's just for myself. Like I'm reading Gramsci right now. That's lightly connected to a video, but that's not what the video is going to be about. So yeah, the idea of making videos to encourage me to do more elsewhere in my life has been a positive experience that is successful. But, part of that was also self-imposed deadlines wherein I wanted to create at least one video every 2 weeks. And what this would do is pressure me, to actually finish projects. Because if I just have infinite time, then I don't know if I'll have the motivation to finish through. But what this also means is sometimes I have to make videos where I don't actually have anything really to add to any conversation. And this has largely not really been that big of a problem. I think it only really became an issue once, and it ended up being my most successful video, so I don't really know what I'm trying to say here. It was the Deus Vult Paradox of History video, wherein I talked about, the, at the time, recent announcement of Crusader Kings 3 and a controversy involving the use of the word Deus Vult. And, generally the video also spoke to fascism that is common and very apparent in the Paradox community, but ultimately it's just such a trivial thing that it's hard to find value in now, especially when the thing it's talking about, the Deus Vult controversy and all that, is no longer relevant. So I look at that in like my list of uploads and I go like, well, this is kind of the most useless video I have. It brushes on some topics, like how I guess Paradox could be better about managing fascism in its community, but ultimately, capitalism being what it is, those fascists are paying customers. They have no actual incentive to do so unless the non-fascists are, they have more money to make up for the losses of alienating the fascist audience. But yeah, I just want to make sure I don't get caught up in making videos just for the sake of making videos, just for the sake of making my 2-week deadline. I want to make something with actual purpose and will have some relevancy once the topic I'm talking about, isn't necessarily relevant anymore. I think another video like that was, I made a video about the Democratic primaries, Bernie Sanders losing and how that should motivate people to do more non-electoral organizing. I also kind of advocated for the creation of a better leftist Labor Party in America. So that has more relevancy outside of its original topic of just talking about Bernie Sanders. So I think that's a little bit better. But yeah, I don't know. Just having Deus Vult and talking about this one time a video game company did an oopsie, it seems like one of these things doesn't belong in as terms of my videos. So yeah, I just want to be careful. I want to make videos with more staying power. That was a term used in a lot of video game reviews that has, something to say more outside of its own internal subject matter, I guess you could say. Because another aspect of that video is that because now Crusader Kings 3 is actually released, that video is getting a bit of an algorithmic boost as people are searching out Crusader Kings 3 content, but the content in that video is no longer actually relevant to anyone or anything, and so it's kind of a wasted opportunity for education and agitation because it could have talked about so much more than just why Deus Vult is a bad word to use in your video game and how managing your video game community is probably a smart thing to do that you should probably do because everyone should have in themselves a responsibility to fight against fascism. So yeah, I guess something I need to keep in mind in the future, which I think that's all the negatives I came across. I guess that means I get to talk about strengths now. I have two main strengths. I think the way I frame videos is very good and something I will continue to do. I frame videos in a very personal way. Typically, not always, but it's usually something similar to this. I will introduce a video by saying, "Hello, my name is blank, and I like or don't like thing, or here's my relation to thing." And that starts the audience off at a point of relatability and a point wherein I am able to express the perspective from which I'm going to be analyzing or talking about whatever subject I am going to be talking about. It also encourages and enforces the brand of, hello, I am person. It gets that name in the head, build that familiarity that will, pay off in the future, I suppose. It kind of backfires when you change your name twice over the course of making videos. Going and watching my older videos and, being like, "Hello, my name is Ann Dawson," and just being like, "No, it isn't, bitch, you fucking liar," was a little fun in its own way. But I think I'll keep doing that because I think it creates an alignment of perspective with the audience, which encourages them to keep watching the video further to see more of what I have to say. And by alignment of perspective, what I'm doing is grounding the videos in a real-world experience. So I think this is most evident in my grocery store tricks video, where I start off the video saying, "I hate grocery shopping, and here's a list of reasons why." Don't you hate it when, like, the shopping cart, one of the wheels is kind of messed up and it's hard to steer and makes a squeaky noise and it's just frustrating? And, what that starts off is a relatable point from which the audience is then encouraged to keep listening, even if they aren't necessarily leftists. So long as, they are at the very least comfortable with listening to the thoughts and feelings of a trans woman, That's kind of a hurdle that I'm not going to get around. But yeah, from that shared perspective of, yeah, shopping is kind of a pain in that light, I can then go on to talk about how the profit motive of capitalism encourages systems and designs that exploit us even outside of the workplace, that exploit us to recuperate the money they gave us, to survive and shit from our labor. Also, like food disparity, talking about like Cuba or like potential ideas for how a revolutionary grocery store would be designed and stuff like that. And over time, you can see how if you're not a leftist, I'm starting to move outside of that shared perspective alignment. And when our perspectives become misaligned, by introducing myself, by saying, "Hello, my name is person, I like this thing or don't like this thing," what I'm doing is building some familiarity. And by the time the perspectives diverge, I will hopefully have built up enough familiarity for the person to want to keep listening anyway, as one listens to a friend, I guess you could say. You got to use, I think, the personality-driven content of YouTube for the advantage of the propaganda itself. And I think I do a good job of that by revealing the tactic and seeing the tactic I use firsthand, watching all my old videos. I think I do a good job of that. Another strength of that technique means that when I do start going off about more abstract socialist theory or socialist concepts, they are introduced in the conversation in an organic way, that it is clear how those ideas intersect with real life, so that when I do start talking about theory, the theory seems less theoretical and it seems more real. I think that is also a plus of that strategy. The other strength is kind of a smaller one. I think I use repetition in my writing effectively as a tool to cement ideas in the audience's mind. I think this is best explained or shown in my Death Stars versus aircraft carriers video, in which I had 3 paragraphs that were talking about how the Galactic Empire uses Death Stars to maintain control over the galaxy. And later on in the video, I use 3 very same paragraphs that are structured almost identically and use some of the same word choices to then talk about how the American Empire uses aircraft carriers for much the same effect. And what this does is, without directly saying that these two are the same thing, the audience is making those connections in their head because I'm, calling back to earlier parts in the video through the use of, repetitive words that I used previously in the video. By making the connections themselves, maybe those ideas will be imprinted in the mind and have a greater effect, rather than if I just said, these two are the same, here's why. Basically doing like a Venn diagram chart or something like that. I guess it goes back to like the Inception movie idea of, if someone believes they came up with an idea themselves, that idea will stand out stronger in their mind. Something like that. It's just a small thing that, I can't use all the time, but I have noticed that where I do use it, it seems very effective in making like a greater point. So yeah, I think that's what I'm good at. I think I'm good at being personable and relatable, and that makes the arguments I'm making seem more palatable to an audience. And I also think I am good at using repetition to connect 2 seemingly different things in the mind of the audience. And my weaknesses are lack of focus, lack of purpose, lack of good audio. All of those are to be fixed over time through just spending more time on scripts, spending more time in video production to create more, visually appealing content, and just spending time learning audio mastery. With that said, I commit myself to doing those things in the future. And I guess to start finishing off, there are some other extra things I want to start doing in the future. I can talk about future projects. I do have a list of ideas, but I don't necessarily want to make those super public because ideas are ethereal, they come and go. And just because I have an idea to make a video doesn't necessarily mean I'll end up actually wanting to do that video or that will make for a good video. So I don't want to promise content on the way that I end up not making. But I am in the process of making a video about Halo and how the cultural hegemony of white supremacy and Christian fundamentalism affected the game's story and setting. I think that is kind of a fun thing I'm working on, mostly because I've just been playing a shit ton of Halo lately, and that's all I can think about, unfortunately, for better or for worse. Yeah, there's that coming. And of course I have a couple other things, but they're not far enough in for me to feel comfortable talking about them. And I guess moving on, I also want to do more for patrons to encourage more patron backers, because Currently we're living in a kind of paycheck to paycheck way. We're not as well off as we previously were, and Patreon would be a good way to create a buffer between us and poverty. Ease our minds a lot. There are definitely better causes to donate to and give money to, and I don't want to take away from that action, but still, I need currency to continue in existence. But as for what that actually means, I want to create more Patreon exclusive content, but I also don't want to create content exclusive to Patreon. I don't want to put educational or agitational, videos behind a paywall. Those should be public to serve a potentially revolutionary function in the future. They don't agitate or educate if people can't see them. So what I think I should do instead is something more along the lines of more personality-driven content that patrons can enjoy, I guess. That doesn't necessarily fit the educational or agitational design of the Red Letter Daze channel. And I think what that means is it'll probably just end up being me nerding out about tangential things related to the videos that I make. For instance, the Halo video I'm working on, I'm thinking I should make a companion piece exclusive to patrons that is just me nerding out about Halo elements that weren't relevant necessarily to the video that I was making. So, yeah, I think stuff like that might be nice. We'll see. Other than that, I can't think of anything. So, yeah, it's been a good year. I am surprised with the success I've had. I always hoped people would watch the videos, but as I've said previously, I was not counting on it. So it is nice to sit here a year later after starting and be like, 500 subscribers and all of my videos get at least 100 views. So yeah, thank you for your support, your viewership, and your patronage. I hope to make better quality content in the future. If you watched this whole half an hour, thank you. And I want to give a special thank you to my patron backers, Ericobia, Josh Thomas, and Paz. Thank you very much for your support.